All right, so Miss Campbell, the language specialist, first student they talk about is that bilingual students who speak Spanish. So some factors she should consider before assessing is how long the student has lived in the U.S., their school attendance patterns, their school instructional history, so like what they had before, maybe in their native country, their cultural background, performance in comparison to peers with similar backgrounds. So maybe she has some stuff with other Spanish speaking students. And then their home life and what language is spoken there, which is most likely Spanish. And then health and developmental history. So getting that information before assessing is very important. A couple assessments, formal assessments that Ms. Campbell could use to gain some information on her abilities or on the student's abilities. First off, I know that students with first language different than English should be assessed in their first language, so we can get to the root of that and identify if it's a language barrier or if it's a learning problem. The BOEM test of basic concepts could be used with the student in understanding the meanings of words in Spanish and English, and they have a Spanish and English version of that, and that kind of goes along with understanding word concepts and stuff like that. So then she could also do the clinical evaluation of language fundamentals 4, just the screening test, and then this would provide the information if the student is in need of further diagnosis of language. Just kind of those first steps before diving into bigger assessments. And then her kindergarten student that is having difficulty with phonological deficits, how can she test those skills? There was one formal assessment on that measures phonology, and it was the Goldman-Fristow test of articulation 2, so I thought she could probably use that. And then what strategies for increasing language? The 3 strategies I chose were she can begin by having students repeat or rephrase instructions throughout the day to ensure that comprehension. To help students learn in different ways, she can make sure to deliver concepts in a variety of ways. So that could be like verbal or auditory, visual, kinesthetic. So all the different types of learners have a chance to really understand those concepts. And then adjust the rate and complexity of her instructional language accordingly. So using those short, simple sentences and limit new vocabulary presented in the lessons, and maybe she could work on that with the teachers as well in the classroom she works with. And then the 2 instructional games that she could play was the first one I thought of. I liked that phonetic bingo. I did a field experience in a kindergarten class, and I feel like the students would like this. It would be more for the younger students. So it's similar to bingo. They have cards, only it's numbers across the top and then letters down, and then the caller calls out the number and a phoneme, so maybe p, and so then they would have to look for that number and p, which would match with the phoneme p on that. And then the next game I liked was the sentence game, which could be used with like all types of different ages, depending on what you put on the cards. So you'll have a board game that they're playing through. So first one to the end wins. And throughout the way they pick up cards with like illustrations on them, and they have to, the student needs to say a complete and correct sentence that goes along with the illustration that's on the card, and then they can keep going. So yeah.